Good night.
Good day, all. So, my YouTube page is called Bye. Sorry about that. My granddaughter was leaving. Ilani Lou. So, my YouTube channel is called Melissa's Vida Loca. It means my crazy life. This year, I'm planning on rather than coming home after work and just laying down and lazing around to do stuff. So this was what I've been up to for the last couple days. I crocheted this and I'm on part 2. I'm just doing the finishing parts and these fit my mom. My mom has super big feet. So I didn't use a pattern. I just used my own design. I used single stitches and half double crochets, single crochets and half double crochets. So now I'm just doing the double crochets around to make the rim. I finally figured out how to make videos on Canva, so my YouTube, my content, my cash stuffing content will be much better because I know now how to make videos on Canva. Um, I'm still waiting for a response from my boss. I wanted to see what we can and cannot say as employees of IRC regarding the election. Um, so we don't have the inherent right to vote as beneficiaries of the Inuvik final agreement. A little bit of history lesson here. Our land claim agreement was signed on June 5th, 1984 in Tuktoyaktuk, Northwest Territories. And it was governed for Inuvialuit who lived within the Inuvialuit settlement region, which consists of Aklavik, Inuvik, Tuktoyaktuk, Ulakaktuk. At that time was Holman Island. Now it's Ulakaktuk, Sax Harbor, and Polituk. And so in each of those communities from the IFA, we got what were called community corporations, which are like the parent body or the babies of IRC. And so with that comes they elect one chair and 6 directors. So all the directors in each of the ISR communities makes up what's called the 42 directors. And we're not self-governed. We have a CEO, and the IRC board is made up of the executives, I believe the chairs from each of the community corporations, but the 42 directors, they meet quarterly, so 3 times a year they meet and they help. They decide on how much our dividend is going to be. We get dividend once a month through once a year through our line claim in May. And that's from all of our like shares and subsidiary companies and stuff like that. The last few years it's been over $1,000, which is good. It really comes in handy, especially at springtime, where some people are out geese hunting, fishing and stuff like that. I know it helps us. In a different video and different content, I've talked about that. So I'm just slowly getting around there. I think I did too short in the back. I only did 16 stitches. In the video that I was watching, it said that you should only have 4 stitches left. I don't have 4 stitches left. I have way more than 4 stitches. But I found a way to fix it. Like I said, this is all my own design, my own pattern. I'm not looking to patent anything or anything like that. I find that crocheting makes me relaxed. So I find that it's a really good pastime to have. So I enjoy doing that. So anyways, back to the IFA. So the 42 directors vote. And for the last, I think I want to say maybe 4 terms, they are 4-year terms. I think for the last 4 years we've had the same CEO 4 terms, Dwayne Smith. He's a local, grew up on the same neighborhood as me on Co-op Hill. I'm best friends with his sister Priscilla, or his niece. I'm not sure what they refer to each other as, but same family. So he's done a lot. You know, he's brought the Inuvialuit forward in a positive manner these last few years. Lots of new infrastructure and stuff coming up. Um, there are lots of good candidates that are running. And so um, our chair from the community corporation, we suggested as members that maybe she has an all candidates form, which will give us an opportunity to ask questions, to find out more about the candidates' portfolio, what their campaign is about. I know I've seen a few on Facebook. Erwin Elias, Hans Lenny, Brian Wade, and Lucy Kuptana. And Lawrence Rubin. Really, really good candidates all around. If we had a chance to vote, I think there would be lots of ties and lots of split votes. Like I said, lots of good candidates. But at the end of the day, I saw another post and it said that in order to be chair, you have to have a good, I guess, business perspective, a people person, approachable, and 100% commitment. You know, and the reason why that this is so important to me is because this is my future. This is the future of my children and my grandchildren. You know, maybe a few years down the road, we might have self-government, which will give us the opportunity to vote. You know, other First Nations are lucky they get to vote. The Gwich'in, they get to vote. Even the Gwich'in, Vunta Gwich'in and Old Crow, they get to vote. Those are our people. Both my grandmothers were from Old Crow. My great-great-grandfather was Petter Norberg. He came from Sweden and he went over to Old Crow, a little isolated community in Yukon, and he met my grandmother Dora Gohatlati, and they built a family. And my grandmother Caroline told a story about how she was separated from her siblings and didn't find them till later in life. It's actually a nice story. I'm not sure how it goes. My mom or my uncles might know how it goes, but my grandmother Caroline was my grandmother Bertha's mom. My grandmother Bertha is my mom Shirley's mom, and Shirley's my mom. And then I have Leslie, and then I have Randy. So that's 6 generations of Guahlatis, Moses and Guahlati. My grandfather, Stephen Moses, married to my grandmother Caroline, was from Fort Yukon, Alaska. My other grandfather served as chief in Old Crow for many, many years, Chief Peter Moses and his wife Myra. So they were in Old Crow. Also, my Situ, Sarah Abel, she adopted a whole bunch of kids in Old Crow and raised them as her own, and my grandmother Bertha was one of them. Just in the last few years, the last one of her adopted siblings passed away. Our Auntie Mary in Newcon, married to Uncle Dick Newcon and got a bunch of kids. Anyways, she passed on. She was the last one left out of 17 of them. So quite a big family. And then we lost our Uncle Winston this past year in 2025. He was our only biological uncle that we had left from our Moses side. And then in October of 2025, we lost our Aunt Agnes, who was our only aunt that we had left, biological living aunt from my grandmother. Our aunties are all gone from my dad's side. And now my grandmother, we have just our relatives in Old Crow and a few relatives here. So we try to, you know, take care of each other as much as we can. With Auntie Agnes, she was sick. She lived in a home for a few years. She had lost her memory and darn dementia. Her and Grandma Bertha, we used to joke about it long ago. When Grandma was still in her right mind, she had it too. She had dementia. We used to joke about it and say we're all going to fall off our rockers. So, as you can see, I'll just interrupt. I'm going around now. This is how it looks, but this is how it's going to look at the finished product. So I'm really happy with myself. This yarn is really nice. I got this yarn when I was in, I believe, Edmonton in October or September. When I went for drum dancing. I haven't been part of the drummers and dancers for many years, just for my own reasons. But I recently started getting back into it because I still know all the songs and the dances. And for me, I'm lucky. I consider myself very, very lucky because I was taught from all the old time elders from long ago. Like George and Martha Harry were elders here, Jean Airy, Uncle Leonard, um, Nanning Sarah, Auntie Emma. Man, there was lots. And then in a Clavic, I was, taught by the Gordon family, Alec and Hope and Andrew, Colin, all of them. Leslie Gordon, he unfortunately drowned a few years back, must be about maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe. Well, more than that, 25, because my Leslie's 25. I was just actually getting to that. So he passed away. Him and I, we went to many places together for drum dancing. And he always joked around with me, always had something goofy up his sleeve. And so after he had passed away, I kind of just, that time I didn't really know about grief or how to handle grief, young and being whatever. So it didn't really bother me until I shortly after he died, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Leslie. I'm kind of just giving the moral of the story away, but anyways, so I was pregnant and I didn't know what to name her. One of my aunties suggested Itanda. I kind of liked the name, but then I thought growing up she might get teased, so I didn't want to put her in that position. So we thought and thought and thought. And then for some strange reason, I started thinking about Leslie Gordon, and all the trips we went on, all the crazy things he did to me. I started thinking, so I looked in the baby name book and it said Leslie was a unisex name, so you could use it for a boy or a girl. And I knew I was having a girl. I went against my grandmother's wishes. She never wanted us to, buy anything for our babies or find out what our gender of our baby was. It's just everybody's tradition is different. But anyways, I went against her wishes. So I'm sorry about that. But I found out that I was having a girl. So, Leslie, with no E. It's Lesli. It's not Leslie, it's Leslie. And I named her after my friend, Leslie. And actually he was alive and Leslie was just a baby, because I had already had her when they had Leslie's service. She was actually just a baby. I remember going to a Clavic for that, and on his funeral paper they put Derek Glenn Leslie Gordon. And I was like, what? If I knew that, I would have named her Derica Glenna Leslie after Leslie. But lots of people here have different names, or like use their middle name. I wouldn't use mine because it sounds like it's a unisex name as well. And not that I'm ashamed of my middle name, but I prefer Melissa. But so going on, so I named her Leslie. And then I liked the name Kiana, Kianna. And then my aunt that wanted to name her Itanda was going to name her Itanda Jade. So we named her Leslie Kiana Jade, named after my best friend. And oh my God, exactly like Leslie. The crazy things she does and says is exactly like him. When I reached out to Andrew and Eva G. Gordon, I was asking them if I could name my baby after Leslie, and they said yes. And just a second, my phone is ringing. Darn creditors, they keep calling for a deceased person. I guess that used to be their phone. So anyways, I called Andrew and Eva, and they were just happy that I was having a baby. Even more happier that I had asked them to name my baby Leslie. So they were happy, and Eva and Andrew said, poor you. I was like, what? They said, Leslie is going to be exactly like Leslie. I said, no. She doesn't know him. I'll tell her about him and stuff. And they said that they would tell her about him too, and ask questions, ask her, or she would ask them about how he was, what his character was like. She didn't even have to ask. Like, from the minute she could walk and talk, she was doing what Leslie used to do to me. And so that, and then, so that was that part. Anyways, I'm just blobbing on crocheting. Um, and with my son, same with my son, I had no name. I didn't know I was having a boy. Um, I didn't want to know. So the only time I found out I was having a boy was when he was born. So obviously I only had girls' names picked out. The girls' names I had picked out were Caroline, Denise. After my two grandmothers, I have a grandmother from my biological father's side. Her name is Denise. She passed away a few years ago. She lived in Fort Good Hope. So I was gonna name my baby Caroline Denise, and I had no boys' names because my pregnancy was the same as I was with Leslie. So I assumed I was having another girl. So my mom at that time worked for the Inuvialuit Devolution Self-Government. So they would often call me in when they were in busy negotiations to go and answer the phone. And the good thing about that is they would let me bring my baby, who was my son at that time. And he was just a few days old. It was close to Christmas. I had him on November 5th. He was supposed to be born October 31st. I always tease him sometimes and tell him if you're born on Halloween, I would have nicknamed you Ghost. But anyways, so he had no name, and one of my mom's coworkers was like, "Oh, what a sweet baby. What's his name?" I said, "Don't know. Still trying to think." Um, Actually, I lied. He did have a name. It's not that I didn't like it, but it was, for me, sometimes it was hard to pronounce. Like, my mom and my grandparents couldn't pronounce it. But so when he was born, I was gonna give up both of my children. Um, Almost the same family, but two different families, if you know what I'm saying. Um, and I was gonna give up my son. And my grandmother Bertha told me kids are not pups. You can't just give them up. And again, everybody's tradition is different. This was my grandmother, so I kept my boy. So I said, well, he needs a name. I don't have I don't have a name for him. So my mom Shirley, she was looking through a baby name book and she found the name Tyren, Tyren. So that's okay, Tyron, different, never heard the name before, different, unique to him. It'll be unique to him, and he can be Ty or and so the middle name I thought of was Thomas. After I had two grandpas. My grandmother Caroline's husband Stephen had passed away, and after he passed away, she started living with Thomas Najutli, who became our grandfather. He passed away in 1975. I wasn't born when he passed away. I was born a few years later, but I heard a lot of stories about him, and my mom and everybody, my uncles and even my granny, they considered him our grandpa. He was our grandpa. So when we go home to Old Crow, we could see Uncle Stan and the family and stuff like that. So and then my grandmother Denise, the one I was telling you about, who passed away, and I was gonna name my girl second baby after her if she was a girl. Her husband's name is Thomas, and he's still alive. He's like 90 something years old, I think. And anyways, so and he was good friends with my father, my grandfather, my dad, who was my dad. Um, I was a good friend with him, so I said Tyron Thomas. And then I thought, my grandmother Caroline was such a strong, devoted Anglican that a nice name from the Bible would be nice. So I thought of Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet of God. So at first I had Tyron Isaiah Thomas, and then one of my aunts came and they wrote it out. They're like, poor kid, you were worried about Leslie getting teased. Look at his initials. So I switched it around and I named him Tyron Thomas Isaiah. And then our great-great-grandfather from our great-grandmother Dora Guahaklati, who's my grandmother Caroline's mom, he was John Guahaklati. He was like a big chief of Old Crow way back then. So then he would put the name together, Tyron Thomas Isaiah John. So I brought him over to Old Crow when he was just a few months old and got him baptized. And there was another one of my cousin's kids that were getting baptized. So my aunt, who's a deacon over there, she was the minister. And between those two kids, she almost got out of breath because they had 14 names between the two of them. So yeah, that's where that comes from. And so I'm just busy crocheting. I'm gonna go on and on and on. This video is getting long, but I'm so happy I figured out how to make Canva videos. So join me for the finished product. Talk to y'all later.